All right, to speak more on this, let's now welcome Security Analyst with the Institute for Security Studies, Willem Els. Willem, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. So based on what we know and just hearing from that clip, 17 men stuck in Russia, 2 possibly killed. I mean, what do you make of this case when you consider the risks at play here in a conflict zone like the Donbas region, the families insisting that these are not mercenaries?
Good afternoon to you, Unati. Yes, it's very serious, especially if we listen to the clip and say where they said that they might be moved to the front
Yeah.
within the next day or two. If you look at the casualty rate on both sides there, unconfirmed, but it's been speculated that in excess of 1,000 on each side, men on each side are dying every day. So that is a challenge that they will have to face. That also indicates that the survival rate of these men, should they be deployed to the front, will be minimal. And that might lead also to some more complications, given the complexity of the cases down here.
So it is a desperate time then. So how common is this type of recruitment scam, targeting foreign nationals under this guise of private security training? And what are the realistic options available to DIRCO to help secure, the safe return of these men? I mean, at the face of it, it looks like human trafficking.
Of course, yeah, and we also believe that might have been one of the cases of the charges that have been laid, that is being currently investigated. It's still early days. We don't know what all the charges are. We believe that the case docket has been transferred to the Hawks for further investigations by the CATS team, that's your crimes against the state team, and that is normally when quite serious cases are being, with a political sort of connotation, are referred to. So in that light, seeing it in that light, of course, it is difficult, because if you look at the allegations, we see that this group has been lured there, according to the complaints, and that they have been secured by one of the mercenary groups. They don't say who. It might have been the Wagner group or some other groups in the Russian side. That makes it a bit more complicated, as they are not directly linked to the Russian government, making diplomatic efforts a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But also, being a country in conflict, that Russia is with the Ukraine, and especially on the front lines, it complicates the challenges that DIRCO would face in order to engage with these people, and also to secure their release. Because for them to go and visit them, that is normally the case when South Africans are in trouble in a foreign country. That might be not possible.
So there's so many elements to it, as you say. I mean, the family is saying that the men were recruited by, individuals with ties to the MK party. Of course, we've seen, the eldest daughter to former President Jacob Zuma, Nkosazana Bonganani Zuma, Mncube rather, opening that criminal case against her sister and 2 others. How might this legal action, take shape in terms of investigation into potential unlawful recruitment? I mean, there's so many moving parts here, including, of course, it might be a case of human trafficking, but there's also being, lured under false pretenses. And then also, as you are saying, these issues that pertain to international and cross-border kind of transactions.
Of course, yeah. As we could gather, there might have been 3 charges that have been laid. The first one is under your so-called Mercenary Act, that actually criminalizes the recruitment and of members to go and fight for a foreign entity or group, but also the people fighting there. So that is without permission, prior permission. That's the one thing that will be investigated. We must just understate there that, of course, it's still being investigated. Nothing's been proven as yet, and it will become more clear as the investigation progresses. The second thing here that we are looking at is a possibility of human trafficking. Of course, that's a different legislation with different elements that will have to be proved. And then also the third one there is fraud, that these people have been lured, as we also gathered, for instance, in your clip, you mentioned that they were told that they were going to Kenya, and then they ended up there. We also saw some of the reports that the contracts might have been in Russian and they didn't understand when they signed it. So those things will be investigated. And of course, at the end of the day, should they be able to build a prima facie case, it will go to the NPA, and then they will decide whether they're going to prosecute. Should they decide to prosecute, of course, it's a whole different ballgame for the people that are accused, because of course, different sort of roles or different things that work here. First of all, the political nature of it. Secondly, the family nature, but also the criminal nature that is ongoing, and also some other cases that are ongoing at the moment.
Yeah. And I mean, that would be one part then of the case. If back home that legal process unfolds, it still leaves the 17 men or so in limbo and in uncertain terrain, particularly, Willem, as you point out, the complexities geopolitically, because, you know, as we know, South Africa and Russia have a very close relationship. But what does that then mean for DIRCO, given these circumstances that you've also just been laying bare here?
Yeah, of course, you know, and unfortunately, so you'll have your criminal matters investigation on one hand, but in the meantime, parallel to that, you will have your diplomatic efforts. And the challenge that we have, as we mentioned earlier, your time is not your friend when it comes to the safety and the lives of the people should they be deployed. So that is a challenge that they have. And also, of course, DIRCO will have to pull out all the stops to engage with not only the Russians, but on the ground there, as I mentioned, where our representatives normally visit these people and where they make sure of the facts, etc. So unfortunately, you know, those wheels are turning slowly and maybe too slow for us to actually save these lives should they be being deployed.
Absolutely. Willem, thank you so much for your time. So much uncertainty here. Willem Els is a security analyst.